It's May. No, it's not even May. God, dear God, it's June. Do I have early onset dementia? It's June and I wish it was Christmas already. I miss Christmas, man. I was thinking about today, what if a year on Earth was actually like half of what it is? Like instead of 365, it was math 182, right? That'd be cool. Have Christmas twice as much rampant consumerism. All right, so in my last video, I talked about introvert versus extrovert in Myers-Briggs world versus what the common definition of introvert versus extrovert is. You can watch that video on one of these sides if you haven't seen it already. Today I want to talk about another tricksy pair of letters in the Myers-Briggs type, which is the last letter, either the J or the P. Because I think that there are some more misconceptions about what those letters mean, and I just want to clear those up. All right, so basically, the J or the P at the end, along with the I or the E at the beginning, is the key to decoding the type. So figuring out the functions based on the 4 letters of the Myers-Briggs type, if you didn't know. As we discussed in the last video, the I or the E at the beginning tells you is the first function introverted or extroverted. Simple enough, easy to remember. The J or the P at the end tells you is the first extroverted function a judging function or a perceiving function. And of course, as we all know, the judging functions are thinking and feeling, and the perceiving functions are sensing and intuiting. And so, of course, as you know, in Myers-Briggs function stack world, it goes back and forth. So if your first function is extroverted, that means your second function is introverted. Likewise, if your first function is introverted, your second function is extroverted. So, for example, we have the INFJ. I meaning that the first function is introverted. J meaning that the first extroverted function is going to be a judging function. And we know from the NF that that's going to be that intuition and feeling are going to be the first 2 functions. So introverted intuition, the perceiving function is first, and then the judging function feeling is extroverted. That's second. In a surprise perhaps to everyone involved is surprised. Introverts, their main function is actually the opposite of what the last letter is. INFJ's first function is a perceiving function. INFP's first function is a judging function. But the first function that you see in the outside world is the J or the P, the extroverted function. Because the introverted functions are all in the inner world, the interior world, whereas the extroverted functions are what can be seen by other people. It's you out in the real world. And knowing this, you can decode all the different functions based on the letters. An ENFJ, for example, is going to be all the same functions as an INFJ, except the first 2 are flipped, meaning the last 2 are flipped also. So their main function is extroverted feeling, and their second function is introverted intuition. Pretty cool, right? We learn stuff. The thing is, though, a lot of people don't realize this, that the J and the P are meant to decode the functions, and they kind of take these last 2 letters on their own as though they are describing something about the person in a more specific way. Meaning, like, if someone is a judging type, then that means they are more orderly, they stick to more plans, they take action more often. And a perceiving type is going to be more loose, more spontaneous, less prone to action. Yeah, those things are generally sort of maybe true. However, you can't just take the J or the P and then assume things about a person or a type. You have to look at the functions and see how that fits into how they interact with the world. The reason that there is this idea of judging types versus perceiving types is because the judging functions are more active. So if you are a judging type, that means that you have extroverted thinking or extroverted feeling in your first 2 functions, which theoretically means that you are more apt and more likely to take action in the real world. Meanwhile, if you are a perceiving type, then that means your first extroverted function is either extroverted sensing or extroverted intuition, which, because they are perceiving functions, are not really about taking action in the world. They're more about gathering information. That's kind of the trap when you're trying to type people, and why just because someone is neat doesn't mean that they are a J-type. Just because someone is spontaneous doesn't mean they're a P-type. You have to look at things as a whole. Of course, there's much more to it than what I'm explaining here, but that's just for starters. I just want to get it out there that those last two letters aren't really describing specific things. Those last two letters are just to tell you what the order of the functions are, along with the first letter. Well, actually, along with all the letters, but that's like the key. The judging versus perceiving, that's the key to decoding the Myers-Briggs type. So that's that. That's judging versus perceiving types. I want to do a really quick segment here at the end of the video for you lovely viewers. Some of you have been asking me about all the guitars I have. I just want to do a quick show and tell on one guitar and tell you a quick brief story about it. I promise it'll be brief. So from time to time you've probably seen this violin bass hanging on my wall. Of course, Paul McCartney in the Beatles used his Hofner violin bass. That's an iconic look. This is not a Hofner. This is a Rogue bass from a musician's friend, I think. It's very cheap. It's like a $200 bass. However, I love this thing. It's been my favorite bass. It has great thump to it. It's a good one. I bought this with my graduation money in high school, so this is old. This is coming on 13 years I've had this instrument, and saying those words makes me very depressed. Recently though, some of the wiring has come loose in here, and I need to resolder it, and I don't really know how to do that, so I've been putting it off. The other interesting thing is the way to get that really Beatle-y tone. These are flat wound strings. So with guitar strings, bass strings, you can get round wound or flat wound strings. The flat wound strings have a much smoother, mellower tone. They're not used as often. The round wound ones are more bright and cutting. For my bass, I like the flat wounds. It sounds retro. It sounds good to my ear. And these strings, I put on this bass in 2005 and haven't changed them since, and they still sound okay. A little show and tell for you all. For the interested few, I can't wait to look at the audience retention analytics for this video and see the steep drop off as I talk about my guitar. But thank you so much for watching, if you did indeed watch this. Make sure you like it if you want good luck for the next 10 years. Subscribe if you haven't already, but only if you're cool. No uncool people, please. Until next time, stay cool and attractive.